Hospital Porter's pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Panmo TV and welcome to Oxford. I'm here again. You often see me walking up the street. It's not often this warm and sunny, but it is tonight, and we are off. I'm back off to the Oxo Bar on Gloucester Green to meet up with Mark Devlin, and we're going to do the Oxford tour again. It's going to be slightly different this time. I'll be filming it for this video, and well, it was a few months ago we last did this. Mark was here a few months ago, if you remember. We went and met up and did a tour to do with his new book. This tour tonight is going to do with both books, The Cause and the Cure and The Gift and the Curse together. Don't know how many people are going to come in. We know Mark hasn't had many advanced sales, but then a lot of people do turn up on the day and pay, so that's what's going to happen. Honestly, we've been very lucky with the weather. If the weather had been too awful, Mark would have postponed it, but no need. I mean, it's really, really nice. In fact, it's the first real summer we've had in the last few days, because it's actually been a very mild, really cool summer so far. So heading there now, so hope you'll accompany me. Well, last time I was here, you could see the moon. It was almost dark. So that was like, 6-7 months ago now. And so we're now waiting for just Mark to turn up. There's some guys who are already here to meet us, to be honest. I think they've been here a long time and they've had a few pints. But they're here to meet Mark anyway, so I'm going to do my best to give them a good time. Oh, my fellow co-host Tony Chin has turned up, which is good. I'm just waiting for Mark. There were some blokes here. Absolutely reeling out their heads. I think there's a few that are still straggling there. And I said, "You here for Mark Devlin?" And they said, "Yeah, I am." I don't think they really understood me.
No, of course
anyway,
not.
Luckily they've all headed off.
No,
now.
this is Pisshead Central, actually.
Yeah. One guy's knocked
quite a few all-day
glass off the
drinking
table.
people who do get here on a regular basis.
Yeah, well,
But what a week for conspiracy. We've had the Trump assassination.
Well, nearly. Not
nearly
quite.
assassination.
He was like he turned his head at just the right moment.
Yeah, we've had
if he hadn't done that, he wouldn't have had a head to turn.
Exactly.
We've had like Kennedy.
The power down today, which looks at another effort to keep us all out of public transport hubs.
True. I know. Well,
they've been going on for a long time, but this is on a scale not seen before.
It's weird, isn't it? I mean, last thing is, obviously we cashies are laughing at them, because we told them this would happen. But what's weird, Tony, is that last night I did the Panmo show last night, and they were warning of giant solar storms. There was like a massive flare.
Yes.
In my space weather report, this was going to cause widespread disruption.
But you were at bases, weren't you? Where we had a speaker.
Yeah.
Teresa.
Teresa, what's her name?
Yeah, who did speak about another Carrington event in the offing.
Well, it's like, I mean, see, at the time they did say this would cause widespread disruption, but now they're saying the cause is actually it's a faulty piece of software in a bloody Windows upgrade or something like that.
There will be a number of excuses as to why and what happened, and there'll also be a number of reasons for doing it. They never do these things for one reason.
Well, I've got a feeling actually they're not insured against. I've got a feeling they're not insured against solar flares.
No.
And they may have made up the story about the bug in the system simply so they can pick up their insurance money. That's what I'm guessing. But
they've got their underground bases for when the flares come, haven't they? That's part of the reason for having this deep underground bases.
Well, if ever you see all the world leaders heading off to New Zealand, be prepared, because that's where they got all their bunkers.
The world leaders are all at Blenheim Palace at the moment.
Oh my God.
And that's been something worth looking at, because the coaches have taken over COVID Central. The Park and Ride, which was fenced off for the COVID jabs, or testing rather, is now full of white coaches with dark windows.
I've seen them, but I've been joking, calling them Janet coaches.
Yeah. Well, they're to take the people out to Blenheim. Jens Stoltenberg and all that lot. They're all there. It's basically a Bilderberg Davos type EU summit type of gathering.
Oh no, I did. These, it's not been in the news. Obviously, there's a D notice on it.
Oh no, it's on the news.
Is it? Oh right.
Yeah.
I see. Because the Bilderberg used to have a D notice, and then it gradually got into the news. But I've been seeing these unmarked coaches everywhere. My viewers will know this because I joke. I call them Janet coaches, and they're everywhere. And it's like.
Yeah, well, they're all gathered on the old COVID lot at Oxford Park and Rise, because that's where the railway station is. So they're coming off that train there, and they're getting onto the coaches.
Oh dear.
And then going on to Blenheim Palace, which is about 3 miles from Kidlington.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, I wonder what's going to happen there. I mean,
well, they're obviously making the the same plans that come out of Bilderberg and Davos.
I mentioned that on the tour, mate. I mentioned it.
Yeah. Well, it's all happening now at this moment. They're all there.
Yeah, definitely. It's nicer weather than last time.
And of course, we've had the, if we're going to rumble the COVID thing on, we've had Biden's contracting COVID.
Apparently, yeah.
And Schrodinger's Kate, she's definitely alive this week, isn't she?
Oh, well,
Schrodinger's Kate.
If it's not an actress, if it's not an actress.
No, I think it's definitely, that's why I say Schrodinger's Kate.
Someone's looked in the box.
Someone's looked.
Someone's looked in the box.
So it's all going on right here, right now.
Yeah, definitely. So mention that on the tour, though, because that'll be. And you've got a good T-shirt on, so that's appropriate. I've got my Dreaming Saucers T-shirt, so just waiting now for the Generalissimo himself to turn up. And yes, we've got nice weather for it. I mean, Mark did say he would postpone if it was bad, but it was beautiful. Couldn't be better. So yeah,
it almost went to the other extreme of being too hot, didn't it?
Yeah, well, perhaps. Yeah. Anyway,
it was earlier on today.
Yeah,
you couldn't walk down the street without breaking.
We've had well, compared to what we've had so far this summer, it's been very hot. So yeah, I went to work today, got a bit thirsty and hot, but
so anyway, first I think I might throw a quick half of cider.
Yes, go and get a drink in. Yeah, guys, we're heading off.
Stop is going to be just a little way into Gloucester Green bus station here, and Tony is going to give us his first insights into Howard Marks.
Is everyone familiar with Howard Marks?
Yeah.
Good.
He's going to make quite a few cameos along the way.
It's an interesting story in itself, but there's a little mystery attached to it. Well, that'll unfold as we go to about 4 different locations associated with him.
All right. Yeah.
All the rest of them are on Mark's scheduled tour, so we'll talk about that as we go on. I'll give the basic introduction outside of a shop that was he was involved with once, so I'll explain that.
Right. Cool. Cheers, Tony.
So the only thing I want to say about this place, for anyone that's read the books, has everyone read the novels?
Yes.
Probably need to reread it.
All right, cool.
And listen to them.
Well, these are all key locations that figure in the 2 stories, The Cause and the Cure and The Gift and the Curse. We've got a scene which takes place in the old house, the old school, pub, which used to be the old waiting room for Gloucester Green bus station, which is right here. And this place was, just consulting my notes, once an open green space outside Gloucester College, which is now Worcester College, over that way somewhere, after which it was named. A fair was held on the green, and from 1835 to 1932, it was the site of the city's cattle market. There is a legend of a medieval plague pit, which is supposed to exist below the bus station here.
That kind of makes sense.
I don't think that's ever been proven. It seems to have passed into legend, but there's
no... If you try and have a market stall there, you don't really get many people coming.
Oh, right.
Oh, I see, right.
So nobody seems to have been able to prove whether that's the case or not, but it's a legend that has kind of persisted. And so 3 of the characters meet in the old house, the old school pub there in the first story. So
I think lots of your book must have gone in because I probably might have known that.
Well, hopefully it'll come flooding back as we go around. So let's head around to this.
Here we go, guys.
The Welsh pony during this. The setting for both books, it was still the Welsh pony.
1990 and 2001.
Why the Welsh pony?
I'll do my best to keep bystanders out of frame, by the way, and I'm certainly going to keep the youngsters out of frame. But if anyone really badly doesn't want to be on Panmo TV, do let me know. All right.
You blur them out.
yeah.
Right, Anna Belinda then, yeah?
Yep.
And this way.
Right, here we go. An actor.
Yeah.
If you've seen Human Traffic, he had a cameo in that.
I love that. That's a great film. I love that film.
He was Britain's most wanted man. He spent 7 years in America's toughest penitentiary. You'll like him. At the height of his career, he was smuggling consignments of up to 30 tons of marijuana and had contact with organisations as diverse as MI6, the CIA, the IRA and the Mafia. A bunch of him and his Welsh undergraduate friends were called the Taffia around this time. But he started a drug smuggling operation out of Oxford University as an undergraduate at Balliol College. We'll see Balliol on the walk later we pass it. But in the early days of making money out of his drug laundering thing, a couple of his undergraduate friends and their wives had started a dressmaking business. It was Belinda O'Hanrahan and Anna Woodward. They become Anna Belinda. Now, primarily dressmaking for college evening ball dresses. He decided to launder some of the drug money through supplying them with sewing machines and a little place to work outside of Oxford Station. He eventually found this place, which was quite striking in the day. We usually long ball gown pictures, models in the window, and it looked like it was something. I can remember it from the time. I lived in Banbury, where I was at college here, technical college. But technical college, in my time, there was a story. All the cool Oxford lads used to talk about things like Paul McCartney's dead. We used to take our records to college, and in the refectory. So I can distinctly remember pushing a copy of Abbey Road across the table, and explaining how it was Paul McCartney's death procession. You know, John the spirit or the vicar, Ringo in black, the Undertaker, Paul barefooted, the corpse, and at the back George in denim as the Undertaker. Well, they also told me at the same time that the song Itchy Park, are you familiar with that?
Yeah, Small Faces.
Was about taking, because the Small Faces coming up to Oxford to do, they were seeing a drug dealer here. Well, they were scoring drugs in Oxford apparently, and Itchy Park referenced that with the lines, over Bridge of Sighs, to rest my eyes in shades of green. We'll be seeing the Bridge of Sighs later on. The shades of green are everywhere, but I think it's University Parks. And then on the Dreaming Spiles, that comes from the Matthew Arnold poem. We'll get to that later as well. And the Whittaker Park, that's where I've been. What did you do there? I got high. What did you touch there? I touched the sky. It's pretty clear what was going on in the song. But the Oxford lads, the cool Oxford lads, told me it was about coming to Oxford. So at the time, I was 18, I said, why would a group from London, at the height of swing in London, wanted to come to Oxford to score drugs when they're living at the epicentre of the sex and drugs and rock and roll in London scene? East End boys had made it big in the West End then, and why would they come here? Well, that seemed a no-no to me. I said, I just don't believe that rubbish. But then I found out about Mr. Nice. That song, Itchy Park, was released in the summer of '67. Also released was a song called Here Comes the Nice by the Small Faces. And Here Comes the Nice, looking so good, he makes me feel like nobody should. And so, it's a drug reference song. Their manager was Don Arden at the time, Sharon Osbourne's dad. It was someone you did not mess with and you didn't like the drug scene. How are you getting that past Don Arden? They eventually signed for, they left Decca and Don Arden and signed for Andrew Lou Oldham's Immediate Records label, which is the Rolling Stones manager Andrew Lou Oldham had started up then, in that summer of '67 again. So that seemed like fantastic, cut and dried now. Here comes the nice to be so. They were coming to Oxford because of Howard Marks, who was a regular on the London scene. So, end of case as far as I was concerned then. But no, I find out from the prologue here, he acquired his nickname, or he acquired the name Mr. Nice from a murderer, a convicted murderer who was out, called Donald Nice. Nice as in the Riviera Resort. And the prologue opens up with haggling a price for buying his passport off him. And he said, how's it pronounced? And he said, Nice. And he said, well, I'm going to be Donald Nice, Mr. Nice. And so you think, but this was about late 70s, 1980, way after the time of the Small Faces and that, so there's a bit of a mystery there. Undeniably there's a link, but the link isn't in this book, and it's not on the Small Faces website, it's not on Wikipedia, and the other things I've looked at. We'll leave that hanging there because we're going to come back to it, and we'll get on with Mark's story, I think.
I remember there was an American tourist once stopped me and asked me the way to Itchy Park.
Yeah.
And I started here in Oxford. I had to explain it doesn't exist.
Well, there's about half a dozen possibilities.
More on that as we pass the Bridge of Sighs, right?
We'll talk about Howard Marks. Well, it's All Souls in Radcliffe Square and then Bridge of Sighs.
You'll continue to make cameos in the story as we go.
By the way, guys, this pub,
I'll ask a question at the end.
it goes back a long way. It's a very interesting pub. It's bigger than it looks. It goes back, like there's another bit around that side where there's some chairs. There's another bit around the back, and I think there's about 3 different little bits where you think you come to the end of it, and there's still more. So it's worth seeing that.
Alright, we're going to a couple of nightclubs now, or former ones.
Good t-shirt there, Mark. It's perfect.
Yeah, thank you, yeah.
Everyone's got some really good t-shirts.
Advertising Sheep Farm,
Very good.
are advertising me. So.
I like the Sheep Farm, yeah. This is Juliet's t-shirt. Truth, freedom, justice, love. Very nice. Very good.
Where in the second story, Drew Hunter, who is Verity's cousin, is seen DJing. So there's a scene later on in the book which is set in that club, The character of Drew is set in part based around my own experiences as a DJ. So I started DJing in Oxford. I started out with radio before I got into clubs. I worked on a station called Fox FM, which I would love to take you all to, but it's way out there in Horsepath Road, Cowley, right outside of the city centre. And Lux FM, the station where Verity works, is very strongly based on Fox. So I started out in radio and then got into club DJing.
That's when I first became aware of you. You did a podcast and you were talking about MTV Studio was built on a Masonic temple.
That's right.
And that stuck in my head. I remembered your name.
Yeah.
Right from, that was a long
Well,
time
Fox FM was a former furniture warehouse, so it's not quite as interesting.
No.
But I DJ'd at the Bridge from when it opened in 2001 till about, I think they sacked me in about 2012. So I had an 11-year residency. So
now, weren't you?
yeah,
On about chemtrails and that too.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
To me as well.
We're going to Park End next, which is just this way. Yeah.
By Samuel Richardson. This was the base that all the boats used to come in. It's now a car park. So there would be coal wharfs everywhere. Barges were horse-drawn then, so this being the Nag's Head would have been a watering hole for all the nags. That seems to be on that, but it's worth. Has anyone read the Philip Pullman book?
Yes.
Well, you know the
You
canal.
can't live in Oxford and not.
Exactly. Well, you know the canal.
The man himself is a complete tosser, but I love his
In
books.
this parallel
Supposed to be
universe.
built on based on us lot anyway.
It is. So as we cross the bridge, have a look out at the car park and imagine the bustle of all the boats unloading, primarily coal in the first of town at that particular time. Horse-drawn boats, loads and loads of manual workers and such, like the noise and the bustle, and the smell as well probably wouldn't be too nice, but we're going to have a look at it anyway.
That's all, big horse manure mostly, I think. But it's strange that these pubs change their names so much because, you find out I'll show you, there'll be some more examples of this actually, of pubs just changing their name, just willy-nilly. They've been one pub for like hundreds of years and suddenly they change their name and they're suddenly another pub. And they're suddenly another name, which is really annoying. This is the old canal. Actually, this is part of the river, I think, which joins into the canal. This is part of the River Isis. Beautiful, isn't it?
Club, we don't need to go all the way up to it, but the place you see there called Attic, back in the day that used to be the Park End Club, imaginatively named after the street. But in the 90s that was the place to be. Yeah. I got my first DJing residency there from 1994 and it was just amazing times, wonderful memories. Had a blast. The whole of the 90s, I just had so much fun. And that was the place where it was at. Sadly, it got bought out by the Luminar Leisure. It's still open as a club. It got bought out by the Luminar Leisure Corporation and it got rebranded. I know, right? And it's been rebranded as Attic and I can't remember what the bar's called, Kiss Bar. Doesn't even matter because it's become corporate, it's become just like a blueprint for all the other clubs and bars, but it had that independent spirit in the 90s and it was great.
I used to go in there a lot. I probably should have seen you actually, Mark, at some point. Yeah. But it was about my shift. Every time we finished the late shift, we'd be down on a Friday. We'd be down to the Park End Club when I was a hospital porter. Yeah, definitely. I was just saying to the other guys that the Nag's Head changed its name. It's been several pubs before it became the Oxford Retreat. It was called. It had a weird name because it was bought up by the Firkin Brewery for a while.
Yeah, it did.
But I'll give you some other examples of how Firkin Hell indeed. Yeah, everything keeps changing. I mean, every time I come to this place, something has changed. A shop has moved, a pub has changed its name, there's a new restaurant, old restaurant. It's continuous. It's almost like being in that Dark City movie where everyone's confused because everything keeps changing. And I think that's deliberate. It's designed to. You can never rely on anything. It messes with our heads, and it's meant to. That's the point.
Destroy nostalgia.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you'll see many examples of that as we go through this city. The Castle Mound.
So, Oxford Castle remains of, and the prison, the former site of, over that mound there. The stories don't actually feature in this particular location. All I've really got to say about it here is that the original moated wooden Motte and Bailey Castle was replaced in stone in the late 12th or early 13th century, which gives an insight into just how old this city is and how old many of these buildings are. Centuries and centuries and centuries. Other than that, last time Ben had a very interesting story about the symbolism of
Yes.
the mound and the obelisk there. So do you want to talk about
I will, certainly, yes. Now, this is vaguely dome-shaped. You'll notice that this mound here is dome-shaped. Now, I was talking to Tony about this off the air, and he said this may be older than it appears to be, rather like those walls in South America which the Incas built on. But on the other side, you have this. Now, this is part of, is it Green Temple? Not Green Templeton, what part of
Nuffield College.
Nuffield College, yeah. Now, you can't see it because of the trees. In winter, when we came here in the winter, this tree was bare, and you can see it actually tapers to a pinnacle. It's a tall obelisk-like structure with a conical top. Now, I don't know how many you feel familiar with sexual energy and things like this. This is very obviously a male sexual symbol. If you see it, if you go take a look at a picture of it, or go and look at it when we can get a better view of it, you'll see it's very obviously a male sexual symbol. This over here, this mound, is a dome, which is symbolic of female sexual energy. So what you have here is a female sexual symbol and a male sexual symbol right next door to each other. And you know what? You see that everywhere. You see it. It's the obelisk in Rome next to St. Peter's Basilica. It's it's the One Canada place in London next to the Millennium Dome. It is the halls of Congress with the Washington Memorial in Washington DC. You see it everywhere. It's like I'll show you another example in this city later on. So you've got to wonder, where did this aesthetic come from of putting these phallic symbols and kind of like vulvic symbols, these yonis, together? And I think it serves a purpose. It's essentially energy generation. And I'll say more about that later, because there's another even better example which I'll show you. You'll see very, very obvious one later on in this tour. You're into ghost hunting, you're interested in that sort of thing, I am. The prison is said to be one of the most haunted places in the world. And the tower there. This predates the university by a good couple of centuries. I don't know why this university grew up here. I mean, it's the geographical reasons why they chose to bring the university. Obviously, this is like an Illuminati training centre. And it has
the ley line.
That's what I was wondering. Yes, because what else brought us? What else would bring us here? Yeah. What else would bring people to make this a seat of learning? It's completely out of the way. When the university first sprung up here about 1,000 years ago, this was a piece of useless marshland, basically, which it really had served. It was nowhere of significance until that time. It was after that it became known for the seat of learning. You've got to ask yourself why that is. And Tony, maybe you just said it too, madam.
It's got to be Lace.
Lace Energies, yeah, that's it. Another pub that's changed its name, the Cowan Creek. That's about the fourth name it's had in the last decade. Yeah. But this was the Westgate for about 500 years. This was the Westgate pub. And then they had to give it new names, just getting to mess with our heads. So that Westgate Centre there, huge shopping centre, rebuilt from the last one. I just think it's ironic that our society doesn't build anything, really, that matches the grandeur of the medieval cathedrals, apart from these temples to materialism. Shops where you just buy things. Yeah. This looks like a short drop gallows, doesn't it? I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
there's another one.
I saw where it says hang, so
yeah.
That's what I thought.
There's another one actually. They set another one up on Cormarket. I don't know what they're for. They do like short drop gallows.
Right, so I've combined stops here. We passed a few key locations on the way. The Westgate Shopping Centre, for anyone that's into shopping, opened in 1972. I can remember that when it was open air. It's recently had a major refurbishment and it's a big attraction for people who like shopping. We walked along Queen Street there, and originally that was known as Butcher Row, and it's where cattle were slaughtered openly in the street right here, so not very vegetarian friendly. And in The Cause and the Cure story, we have the assailant chasing, I take it everyone's read the story, so everyone knows that it's Phil, right, who's the guy that's been committing all the killings, and he's being chased along the street here after a really punishing chase by the assailant. And that's where he gets knocked down by a bus, somewhere probably opposite Ryman there. That's where that happens in the story. And then Phil takes refuge inside Carfax Tower here. I invented a fictional sort of manhole cover where he discovers an underground tunnel which leads from Carfax Tower all the way down to the Meter Inn, which is a short way down the high street there, over to the left. So reportedly there are a whole load of real tunnels underneath Oxford, as is the case with most cities actually, and there is reported to be one which runs a short way down the high street there underground. Whether it's there or not, I really don't know, but for the purpose of the story, it was. And so this is Carfax Tower. This is a pretty important Oxford landmark, and I guess we'll put it over to Tony here.
Okay, I wanted to introduce this fellow, Alfred Watkins. Anybody not familiar with Alfred Watkins? Okay, he invented it, well, didn't invent it, he noticed alignments back in the early days of the 20th century when he was on his brewery rounds. The family was a brewer, he used to travel by horseback. One day he saw these lines laid out of Lincoln churches and streams and crossroads, all like golden arrows in his description. So thus was born the lay system. This book was published in 1925, and in it was a very early representation of the Oxford lay. A quick look at that. This is the centre point. It forms a cross. It's east-west, north-south. East-west and north and south. And this here would have been the central point. The sort of things that was aligned on there were churches primarily in the town centre. We're looking at, I'll read them out, St Mary Magdalene, St Giles, which are on the north side, we'll see those later. St Martin's Carfax. Now this tower here is all that remains of St Martin's Church. This was a church, and this is the centre point. St Aldgate's down there, which I think we're going to have a look at next. There's another point on that. And then Folly Bridge going down there. Then Peter's in the castle. I think, obviously demolished, because the castle's not there as such, but I think it might have been Bond Square. That's St Peter's College behind it, and the cleared space for the Bond Square area could have been St Peter's Church. It would align with this and the churches down there. That's St Mary's Church down there, which is on the alignment. And where else? Yes, these lays across at St Martin's Carfax on the highest point of a gravel bank. So this was a gravel bank back in the day, and this is the traditional assembly point for Common Council Justice and Market. And so it all happened on this particular junction. I think people might have been drawn to the crossroads, like in the Robert Johnson sign. The crossroads are very significant, and this was the way that the whole grid was laid out from this point. So we're on that ley line now, and this book it went on to be massive in the 70s again as a revival. But there were little old straight track clubs for readers of the novel. Imagine that, readers of novels getting together to relive some of the things, and they flourished until the Second World War. And it wasn't until a revival movement happened in the latter 50s. Some of those people I've met now. But I'm a member of the network of Blade Hunters, and I shan't mention the names at the moment because you won't know them anyway.
Maria, do you know Maria Wheatley?
I know Maria Wheatley very well.
I did a course.
Maria, yeah.
Yeah, but she was there at the beginning, and but these other people were. So it got massive in the 60s, but the counterculture got hold of it, and all sorts of things went on. Paul Devereux was a big enthusiast in the 60s, but he got fed up of the idiots who were just sort of spouting any kind of whatever their favourite theory was. That was being attached to this lay system, but it's still going, and there's something in it. If you've got dowsing rods, pendulums, such like, the energy's tangible. Some people who are very, very sensitive don't even need the rods. You know, they'll sit down and they can feel it. I don't know if it's because of the amount of alcohol I consume, but I do need the rods, and I need to see the rods touch it. But I think that's enough for lays at the moment, but this is the central point. St Peter's was probably Bond Square where we just gone by, and then out to Oseley Mead there was the old abbey. There's an abbey road down there, and of course this was all church land. This is why Oxford University decided to stick a university there, because they were all ecclesiastical establishments to begin with. So we're on that now. We're still at that particular point. If we got dowsing rods, they're probably doing nothing because all the interference from tourism backwards and forwards. But are you going down that way next?
I think we'll save a bit of time by not going down
Okay.
there. But just to point out that the town hall, Oxford Town Hall, is just a short way into St Aldate's there, over to the left. And that's the scene of the emergency meeting in the second novel, called by the Mayor of Oxford, Eugene Nix. Get it? Eugene Nix. Yeah. Alongside the Bishop of Oxford, whose name is, what did I call him? Fabian Lucas, I think. Yeah.
Great name.
So that's just down there. We'll head down to the Meter Inn, and then we're going to be going and then we're going to be going to Radcliffe Square.
That's how people about the underground tunnels, chambers. Yeah, there was along with the tunnels that Mark's just mentioned. A few years ago, there was a news article about some underground chambers that have been discovered. Just literally, if you cut 100 yards or so that way, outside where McDonald's is, they were about 6 feet deep, and they contained human remains, and that is basically bones. Now, when I went round there to have a look, this is just when I'd started doing the Hapanmo blog. I went and had a look, and boards had been put around the area, and the bulldogs were out. Yeah, these are the university policemen, the guys with the bowler hats. They were out. You'd often see them outside their colleges, and they were guarding it. And I thought, what's going on there? Not the normal police, the bulldogs. And then the news just went quiet on the whole thing, and nothing more was said about it. Something similar this lady here was telling me about, something I knew as well. I think you may have even seen my articles on the subject. An ancient circle was found up near Blackhall Road, where Blackhall Road is now. It would have been about 500 feet across, making it very large. Maria Wheatley knows all about this. There's no, unfortunately, unlike Stonehenge in Avebury, this has originally been, whatever had been used to create this circle was made of wood. It may have been like tree trunks and things like that, and logs stuck in holes. But the holes are still there, and they were found. And this was a ritual site maybe 4,000 to 5,000 years ago. And so, again, there's not much was learned about this. They found the holes, and they did some work there, but then they built things on Blackhall Road.
So wood or stone, they're just markers, aren't they, for the engine?
Yeah, exactly. That was his purpose, yeah.
Geo-spirals and sort of thing.
Yeah,
Really powerful.
I taught my dowsing rods up there like a couple of times. I couldn't actually do anything, but I'm not an expert at this sort of thing. I'm really,
Dowsing as well?
not very well, but I've been on Maria's course. Yeah. I've done the course, yeah. But there's something. Obviously, this was the official story is this was basically uninhabited until the early Middle Ages. But surely somebody was here in the late Neolithic, Bronze Age time. There was a settlement here. This was a ritual centre of sorts, which would make sense considering the lines and the ley lines and things like that. Yeah. So not much. Can't tell you much more about it because nobody knows.
Okay.
All right.
Lights are above the door. The bishop's
Exactly.
lights.
So you know what it was?
At least I haven't taken that down. It's called Gusto Italia. It's changed. Another thing's changed. That's narrowing. I didn't even know that. Shows they share every only.
I swear, when we came here in March, that was still the inn.
Yeah. It's
Changed its name since.
I know. I mean, it shows how I don't come down here very often, but every time you do, something's moved. Just like
It wouldn't have had quite the same impact in the story if he'd emerged in an Italian restaurant. It's
I
supposed
know.
to be in the basement of a pub.
Exactly. Oh, that's a shame, isn't it? Maybe it's because of your book they changed it, Mark.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, we got the coach in back in the day.
That's true.
Carry on
Yeah.
that way. The centre of the campaign to have it removed because of his attachment to the slavery trade, exploitation in colonial.
Child, it's all-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there he is. There's no way he's coming down. He is a major benefactor for Oriel College. This is the back end of Oriel College.
Which one is it?
He's one at the top in the middle in Pride of Place.
If you go down that road there, it's never part of the campaign against roads, but his rooms look out onto that particular road there, and there's a big brass plaque with his silhouette on there and explaining that road stayed here, and no one goes anywhere near. They don't know. No one looks at it. They just see that, and That's what I've
If you look at this, there is a notice in the window with a lot of very apologetic and sort of self-deprecating statements about how, oh, we were sorry and we hate ourselves, but you know we can't take the statue down, oh, that sort of thing. Oh, we don't like him. He did give us a lot of money, so we have to leave his statue there.
Of course, the Rhodes Scholarship has featured big time in world leaders coming around here to get a bit of an Oxford education. Bill Clinton and Bob Hawke and such like. Yeah.
Well, almost anyone who's like, if you look at these people, these young people walking past us today. In a few years, those are going to be presidents, prime ministers, leaders in Africa, the Commonwealth, Canada, Australia, places like that, India, all over the world. That's what Oxford is for. And the Rose Mandela Trust gives a huge amount of money to this university, and Cecil Rhodes was incredibly wealthy because of his adventures in southern Africa, and he got gold, he got diamonds, he got everything. And I don't think even the pressure of Black Lives Matter and their huge demonstrations, you know, at the end of the day the purse strings talk, and money's the only thing that will make people stand up to these rioters, and that's what they did.
It's worth looking at the pillars of this church. This is the University Church, and that's spiral.
Oh, you notice the ones but next to Rhodes are as well. Look, Tony, the ones next to Rhodes are spiral as well. Why is that? Why is that?
I've not heard an explanation for it, but I would say it's probably something to do with the spiral energy generated.
Oh, right.
So there we are, the spiral columns.
They must be much more difficult
It could be something to do with the ley energy. This church is on Watkins's ley line, the east-west configuration of that.
Yeah.
So,
when should I mention Magdalen College, Mark? Is now a good time?
Go ahead if you want.
Yeah. This is not part of the tour. We can't go there, unfortunately, because it's in Magdalen College, which is like about 200 yards in that direction.
sacred as well.
Yeah, you've got to pay to get it. You've got to go in opening hours, you've got to pay to get in. But there's a Panlo TV video all about this. There are very strange statues in the quad. And one of them, and there's a video, you can see my video on my channel, one of them looks distinctly like a reptilian humanoid of the type that was in David Icke describes in his books. Now, when I went in there, I asked about the history of those statues. All I know is they were put there by an unknown sculptor. The record seemed to be lost between 1500 and 1510. And they're supposed to, I said, what do they mean? They meant there's something to do with heraldry. You know, coats of arms and things like that. Well, I've never seen a coat of arms with like a lizard man on it. You know, it's an Ikean reptoid. So I do wonder.
A cover story,
Yes, I do wonder how that got what inspired the artist to create
Oxford is
those.
famous for its gargoyles, though, isn't it? You know.
Gargoyles are kind of like they are sort of like maybe strange lizards. This is distinctly humanoid, reptilian though. It's not like a normal gargoyles. It's worth paying the £8 to go in and have a look at it though. Or you can watch my video, which I made in there. Yeah,
That might do it next
Your
week.
video's cheaper.
it is. It's free.
You do the £8, we'll watch you.
Yeah, right. You are. Okay. Now, the day we're recording this is the day when there may be a possible what's known as a black swan event. There's been a huge breakdown in global communications and computers. Now, this has been blamed officially on a faulty upgrade full of bugs for a major operating system. However, there was also major solar flares last night, as you know if you watch Panmo TV. So I'm just wondering if, maybe they're saying it's bugs because they're not insured against solar flares, so they're pretending it's a bug in the system. They've done that sort of thing before. Look at it. This is Radcliffe Square. Yeah. Quite grand, it's very grand. Look at
This
these.
is a pretty good scene of the 15-minute city of green spires.
Yeah.
Of greening 5G spires.
It's an amazing sight.
The
This.
thing is, though, the people that inhabit
Make
this
a pretty
bit will be
amazing shot.
protected from
Yeah.
it, isn't it?
Well, yeah, as they are in my story.
Yeah.
So,
Sometimes in fantasy movies, they use this. You see this in some fantasy movies like Twilight,
so
and
what
they
we've
use
got
this
here,
as the.
folks, is the culmination of The Gift and the Curse, the second story. The focal point of it is this building here, the Radcliffe Camera. And if you've read the book, you'll know that there is a plot underway by the Order, which is the secret society network which controls Oxford and all its institutions. I wonder where I got that idea from. And
Well, I can't really go on the cobbles. Oh, was it a big deal? I rang the bell.
okay, part two. So The focal point of the story is this building, which strikes me as looking a little bit similar to the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Some symbolism there, skull symbolism, maybe. And in the story, there's a plot to have this building blown up in the wake of 9/11. So the story is set in 2001, right after the September 11th attacks, and to have the terrorist act blamed on Muslim terrorists, what else? As an excuse to lock Oxford down into a dystopian, nightmarish lockdown, effectively. Again, don't know where I got that idea from. And so the explosives have been placed in another underground tunnel, so it's back to that motif. And the characters who foil the plot discover the tunnel, and I had the idea that they would find it behind those grills that we passed as we came through the passage there. So in my mind, the tunnel sort of runs underneath here and goes all the way under the Radcliffe Camera. And of course they foil the plot and it's still standing. The library's construction, this is a reading room, effectively a reading room and part of the library attached to the university, and it was funded by the estate of John Radcliffe, who's a guy who figures in Oxford history majorly. He's got a hospital named after him, very famous hospital, and he was a physician who left £40,000 upon his death in 1714 for the construction of this building. So, other than that, did you want to say something about
it
this?
was completed in 1749, which I want you to bear that in mind. That's 60 years after the Sheldonian Theater, which is the next place we'll have a look at as we turn into Broad Street. But before that, just have a look at this. And 1749, it was supposed to have been built. It looks fairly old to me. I don't know if anybody's into all that Tartarian.
I was wondering when someone was going to start mentioning
I'm not going to go into that now because there's a lot of things you could say about it. I wouldn't take it at face value, but I would say that there is concealed history. And I think that building there is a lot older than 1749. It was designed by somebody called Gibb, was it? Anyway, yeah, I think his name was Gibb. James Gibbs, yeah. Supposedly completed in 1749.
Old World Order, that's a good documentary that's just come out. It's very interesting about that sort of thing, yeah.
Coming back to Howard Jones, so we'll talk about that at the Bridge of Sighs, but across there is All Souls...
Howard Jones?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Howard Mark. Across there is All Souls College. All Souls is famous for having no undergraduates. It's fellows only. And to become a fellow of that, you take what's reckoned to be the most difficult Oxford exam out there. So it's not what's the capital of Peru and stuff like that. It's using the liberal arts. The 7 liberal arts are essential to an Oxford to a classical education. The trivium of grammar, logic, and rhetoric is the basis for, I think, the kind of exam. I'll give you a subject to discuss, and you'll write a paper on it. And there'll be a series of these papers, and eventually you'll do a presentation one evening to the fellows of All Souls. So if you're accepted, then you're into a fairly exclusive and limited organisation. It's still operating there. There's still the fellows and dons in there working. I did go round it on Sunday to have a look, especially for this talk. The chapel, which is to the far left, is really interesting. The frontage, as you look out towards the altar, is all in black and gold. You know, like Anubis, the Egyptian god of the dead, the jackal-headed god of the dead, is usually depicted in black and gold. It's all black and gold round there. Behind the altar, rows, I think there's about 5 rows of about 9 statues across each of these levels. So it's all statues behind the altar. It's an amazing thing to go into. The Codrington Library, I think, some of this has got Nicholas Whitmore attached to it. It was a sidekick of Sir
the London guy there, yeah.
We'll be talking about Wren at the Sheldonian.
He was in the Priory Science.
Yeah, but the library, I think, which had Hawksmoor had something to do with designing, was called, they used to call it the Codrington rather than the library. But they call it the library now and not the Codrington anymore. There's a plaque there saying the Codrington family apologise for their involvement with slave labour on the plantations in the West Indies. Words to that effect. There's an apologetic plaque, and everyone now just calls it the library instead of the Codrington.
Cancel culture.
But Marx himself was, when he was doing his postgrad work, he was looking for funding, and they fund people doing various things. He did physics at Balliol, but he come back and did philosophy, and so he launched there, and normally people who are invited to lunch have got a closer connection, and then he eventually presented his paper there. But I don't think it was to become a Don. I think it was to become a fellow of that. I shan't go into the details. There's lots of interesting details about what he was studying. That's the Newton-Leibniz arguments again, Plato and Aristotle. It's a big thing in philosophy.
That's interesting,
but
though. Right?
He presented his paper there. It's sufficient to say that. And I would think if there was an order, as in Mark's book and everything, they would be associated with places like this. But there'll be more on that later. I think we should be moving along to the next section.
Before we go, can I mention first thing I noticed, that looks like the Taj Mahal over there. It's like a mini bit of the Taj Mahal. Secondly, look at these two. Look at the symbolism. Look at the sexual symbolism here, male and female together. This whole square is an energetic shag.
It's the centre of Oxford.
Sorry to put it so bluntly, but it is.
Above the gateway of All Souls, you'll see the old familiar pine cone. Remember the pine cone and the
pineal gland, yeah.
connection?
Yeah.
Well, there it is. The pineal being that.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, look.
The third eye that looks into the unseen world that we can't quite see. The parallel words stuff and everything. Yeah. So the fact they've got a pine cone above there.
I don't know if it is based on Taj Mahal, but it looks like it.
No. I think it's probably before. If the Taj Mahal is the stuff.
It's Mughal. It's sort of 16th century, I think.
That's probably based on some sort of energetics on the old Tartarian.
Yeah, it may well be. The Mughals were very, very clever people because they combined the Persian, Muslim, and Hindu traditions of India. Yeah.
Well, all the turrets, they're all drawing in the ether.
Yeah, I wonder if the crenellations are something to do with that. Notice how prevalent the crenellations on these things that stick out are.
Are they
I think it's
decorative?
something to do with the energy.
They obviously knew a lot more than we do.
Yeah. Are they decorative or do they serve a purpose? In the Old World Order, it says that they were used as like aerials for energy.
Yeah, that's right.
Aerial for energy.
There are people who would know that, but not the Don who I spoke to in there.
Or maybe he didn't tell you. He just didn't tell you.
There's like a bust of a figure on the other side of that dome. I wanted to know who it was, so I asked the porter who was there, and he stopped one of the. He said, "This guy knows everything about it," and he looked and he said, "I don't know." So either they don't know or they're not saying. He's probably on his meeting of the audience somewhere. Somewhere.
There may be some people in Magdalen College who know exactly what those statues were of the reptilian humanoid. But there's two actually.
Really
But they just didn't want to tell me because I'm just a tourist who comes in and asks. Not supposed to. Yeah.
Well, the people who deal with the tourists, they.
At Yale University.
Skull and Bones.
Exactly. I was being given a tour by a student who made the mistake at one point on the tour of saying, "Has anyone got any questions?" I said, "Yes, I've got a question. What can you tell me about the Skull and Bones secret society within Yale University?"
Absolutely.
And she said, "Oh, that's just a supper club.
Yeah,
It's just a social sort of meeting place where various fraternities get together and have dinner and just socialise." So that settled that then.
It's interesting to know that Donald
talk about
Trump.
rituals in coffins or anything like that.
They've been filmed. Alexandra Bruce actually
It's
filmed
interesting
them.
to know that Donald Trump's pick for vice president, his running mate, is J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance.
Is he a bonesman, is he?
Well, this we don't know, but he studied law at Yale, so we need to find out if he was a bonesman. Almost certainly, I think he's going to be.
He's gunning for Labour.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's probably well connected. I mean, the Ivy League.
What I did read about that Vance, though, is they've really got some dirty on him. He's just been put in he's been put in the limelight. Just
They probably went to P. Diddy parties.
As Mark said many times, you don't
Most of
get
them do,
stuff.
yeah.
The light is being shone on stuff now, though, isn't it? It's quite interesting.
But
bloody time.
it's Yale, Harvard, and a couple of others. They're known as the Ivy League, which is similar to Oxbridge in the United States.
Columbia.
They're the main.
And a 1960s group, St. Thomas' Small Faces, the Ivy League, the Small Faces.
Oh, right.
But that's something else.
We're heading to the bridge.
We're heading to the Bridge of Size. Catalogue and keep copies of all the books that were printed. I shouldn't imagine it's everywhere. I wonder if they've got a copy of the Gift and the Curse in there. And
They will, have, yeah. They've got copies, they got mine. They've got copies of mine.
Underground.
Yes. They should have to yours as well. I think you have to provide them. I mean, have you sent any in?
No.
Oh, well, they'll come for us.
I'll personally hand deliver them.
Come on, bang them on the door.
The underground storage places for these books is massive under there. And the new building, which is across the road, we've seen that in a moment. But this is the famous Bodleian Library of Oxford, one of the first of its kind, or a prototype for reference libraries. You can still go in there and
You might recognise this from some films, because one good film is actually called Another Country. It's like a school, boarding school film. A lot of it was filmed here and around the corner in Brasenose Lane, which we just passed, near where we were standing before. That's a really good movie.
Rupert Everett.
Yeah.
Like that, isn't it?
There's young Rupert Everett and young Colin Firth. It's a very good film. And there's several other movies. A lot of Harry Potter was filmed around here as well, because it looks so spooky. That's why it looks just the part, doesn't it? And it's really, it's
And one day they'll film The Gift and the Curse and The Cause and the Cure here.
Of course, yeah. Well,
Maybe not.
Well, yeah, you've got to make a great movie. It ends with a car chase, for goodness sake.
I know, right? That's why I put it in there, to make it cinematic.
Exactly, yeah. This is what's often called the heart of Oxford.
Okay.
You have the Sheldonian, you'll see it in a minute, and then there's the Bridge of Sighs there.
this is the Bridge
They
of
got
Sighs.
another one in Cambridge, which is over a canal.
That's right.
Should we do it from here, because there's always
yeah.
the centre. Let's get a good view of it.
I've got in the book where they're trying to blow up the Radcliffe Camera. I imagine the architects of the plot being in one of these upstairs rooms where they've got a view, well, not much of a view there, probably somewhere around in Broad Street. So you've got Eugene Nix, Fabian Lucas, and the other guy is Vic Astock.
That's him, yeah.
Who is a social scientist. Vic Astock. The clue is it's an anagram.
Yeah. I think it was above
Further clues on his
Blackwell's.
T-shirt.
I know too much about that organisation, I do, yeah.
Can we come back to the small faces again then? This is the famous Bridge of Sighs, so named after a bridge in Venice, where they used to take prisoners on their last journey before they were due to be executed, and the Sighs was leaving the place of confinement to the place of execution. Apparently that particular bridge in Venice doesn't look like that. This looks more like the Rialto Bridge, but the poetic thing is it should stand. It links two parts of Hertford College. This is Hertford College on either side there. And it is the one referenced in the Small Faces song, which goes like this: over bridge of sighs to rest my eyes in shades of green, under dreaming spires to Hitchin Park, that's where I've been. And what did you do there? I got high. What did you touch? What did you feel there? Well, I cried. I think this is a better trip. But why the tears there? I'll tell you why. It's all too beautiful. It's all too beautiful. That's a third-party copyright strike on my video now. So the Small Faces website will tell you that they picked up a leaflet, a tourist leaflet. The Small Faces website said it was in Bristol. That's something else. Mark's had connections to Bristol as well. And the Wikipedia thing will tell you that the Oxford tourist leaflet was read and about the Dreaming Spires and Bridge of Sighs, and they thought that sounded good, so they stuck it into the song. But I'll tell you why I think this is a more personal thing. I mean, for a start off, he was reading a tourist leaflet like that at the height of the swinging 60s London scene. They were at the epicentre of it. Why would they come up to Oxford for drugs and to have this experience? So we move on to the other song that came out there, Here Comes the Nice. Here comes the nice, looking so good. He makes me feel like no one else could. He knows what I want. He's got what I need. He's always there when I need some sweet. So once again, it's drugs. Now it turns out the original keyboardist of the Small Faces, Jimmy, and I can't read what I'm writing there, Jimmy somebody or other, had a girlfriend who was really into this beat poet called Richard Buckley, or the self-styled Lord Richard Buckley. He was American. His father come from Manchester. His father was a lad stowed away to America, and Richard was born in 1902, he started doing this beat poetry thing, which was big in amongst the beatniks in the 50s. So the girlfriend of the original keyboardist with the small faces used to play this record over and over again. The record was called the Naz. You see the link? And the Naz has a line in it which starts off, "Here comes the Naz," and he's going to distribute the drugs and everything. So I think that's where "Here Comes the Nice" is coming from. So getting back to Marx again, he was into beat poetry. In his rooms in Balliol, they used to have regular poetry readings, and it was all this beat poem stuff. You can listen to the poem; it's there on YouTube. Richard Buckley died in 1960, so it was basically a beatnik thing in the 50s rather than a hippie thing in the 60s. But Marx was into this big time, and they went to poetry events which were doing the beat poetry. So the link between him being the distributor, being the Naz, translated nicely, I think, from when he saw the passport, Mr. Nice. And so I want to know is, was he called, did they refer to him as the Nice or the Naz out of this beat poetry stuff at the time? And why don't we know about it? Because that book I showed you earlier documents pretty well all the drug activity that was going on, so it's no secret anymore. But the small faces themselves never mentioned. These two things come at the same time, 1967, and to me they're obvious references to coming to Oxford to take drugs. But there's I think this again is from the. Oh yeah, this is another stanza from "Here Comes the Nice." Here comes the Nice, looking so cool. Everyone there knows the Nice is no fool. He'll bring you up and show you around. He's always there when your feet hit the ground. Now, this term coming up is commonly associated with Oxford. If you've got a place at Oxford University, you come up to Oxford. Everything below Oxford is down. So you come up to Oxford.
Yeah,
and when you graduate from Oxford, you go down and out into the world.
I was wondering where that was.
So I would think Marx, if he did know the small face at the time, would have mentioned that. He'll show you around. Now, show you around where and why and what? I think that they must have, when they wrote this song, they must have had the experience of coming to Oxford and being shown round by Marx, and probably got high with Marx as well. But once again, why aren't they saying anything about it? This is the great mystery. I think that Stevie Marriott died fairly young. He died a long time ago, and Ronnie Lane got motor neuron disease and died about 10, 15 years ago or something. So both of the songwriters who created this stuff are no longer with us. Howard Marks, of course, died of cancer a few years ago, so he's not around anymore. There was no reason for it to be kept secret, but I'm going to leave that up in the air as we go on to the next place.
Can't ask Don Arden either.
No, he's gone as well. And you'd be very careful about how you approach Don Arden as well. He had a gangster...
There's a legend about him hanging... who was that guy? Robert Stigwood.
Oh yeah,
the manager of the Bee
Polydor Records and
because Stigwood
Cream.
wanted to sign the Small Faces and take them away from Don Arden.
Yeah.
And he dangled him upside down by his ankles outside of his office window, his
Yeah.
upstairs office window.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
Stigwood changed his mind.
Yeah.
Funny enough.
But he did sign Led Zeppelin afterwards, and so I think he did okay. And Eric Clapton and Cream. So I think Stigwood did really well. Because he was an
He was behind Grease and Saturday Night Fever as well.
I say his entertainment business spread far and wide beyond just the sort of psychedelic hard rock and stuff like that.
Over there is the oldest pub in Oxford, the alleyway between between the Hartford College and the Red Building. Just like down that alleyway is the Turf Tavern.
Yeah,
the
He's
oldest.
got his own tankard.
Yes.
There's a blue plaque on the left-hand wall as you go through, commemorating Jane Morris, who was the muse of the pre-Raphaelites who used to meet down there. She was the girl with the long red hair who appears in lots of the pre-Raphaelite photos. Her father was a horse trader, and they lived in that passageway down there next to the pub. The pub used to have things like cockfighting and all sorts of things, gambling and all sorts of things going on. There was a famous, the Town and Gown friction was massive, even back in medieval times. And there was a big fight at one time around this area, which included a number of deaths amongst the town people and the students. The town and gown is a little bit milder now.
Continues to this day.
Yeah.
Continues to this day.
Yes, to a certain
There's a rivalry between
extent.
between that university and the
But it
lay
is not massive.
population.
But the blue plaque to Jane Morris is down there on the way in there, and I saw two young women, who I presume were students at one time, who were enraged that she should have a blue plaque. Then I heard them say, "That's ridiculous, she shouldn't have that," because she married William Morris, but she had affairs with all the others.
Now we're going to have another campaign. She must, Morris must fall, and what's her name must fall. We want the plaque removed. Oh dear.
No, I think most people are quite into the pre-Raphaelites, are into that. But this next, this is while we're here. Now this is interesting. This is called the Sheldonian Theater. And that's
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And it was designed in. I might as well do it. I was going to do it in front of it. Shall I do it from here? Are you okay with that?
What were you going to do?
Just mention that briefly.
Yeah, we've got the Martyr's Cross next, so you can do this.
Yeah. So let's get this out of the way first then. Yeah, this is the Sheldonian, commissioned by Gilbert Sheldon. It was built between 1664 and 1669, and it was Christopher Wren, Sir Christopher Wren's very first attempt at a domed roof. It was only the second building. He was not an architect. The secret professor in the book called The Dark Side of Academia, which is in the bag. If you want to know more about that later, we'll come to it. But for now, this was supposed to be Wren's second building. The D-shape was based upon the Roman theatres from classical times, which were open air. Obviously, they couldn't do it open air here. But the dome is very, very important because it was the first time that sort of thing had been done. It spans something like 70 foot, and the whole thing got up there, and there's no supporting columns. The dome used a truss spanning up to 70 feet, and there are no columns supporting that. So that when it comes to St Paul's Cathedral, then this was supposed to be the dry run for it. But once again, I think this is something that's been there a long time. That one, to me, looks older than the one we looked at around there, Radcliffe Camera. Although I should imagine they all look about the same time. But if you're into the Tartarian mudflood and everything, can you see the tops of the windows? You can see the tops of the windows poking out there.
What's interesting about this is another building in Oxford, much more recent in fact, has a similar layout. It's the Kassam Stadium, which is Oxford United's new ground. But it has
one side end.
It's like it has one end open. Ellis Taylor, who's he's a guy to look at if you're interested in this sort of thing. Yeah, because he's into symbolism and things in Oxford. He says it's horseshoe. It's just both these buildings are meant to symbolise horseshoes. I can't remember all the details.
Well, the stadium just so people could have a free look in.
Well, you can do. I mean,
the Roman amphitheatres were based upon.
I was there, like.
Plato's measurements, weren't they? And so, whether that is the same, I don't know, but I would imagine so. The interesting thing is, not on the official site. Well, I read on another site about it, was that the original printing presses, which the university were using, were housed in that building, which was built as a theatre.
You're right.
Not a theatre for acting, a theatre for music. And all the college functions, when they all pass out and stuff like they've got Latin names for all this. But the big things happen inside there. The students in their regalia are all over this square when there's one of their ceremonies going on there.
You often see them in costume.
It didn't actually start putting plays on until very recently, about 15 years ago. Christchurch University, the first play they did was The Crucible. About the witch trial connections and all the rest of it. But it was a music venue and a university place for their ceremonies. But that dome is very, very interesting at the time. But the printing presses, why would they have had printing presses when it was built? They were only there for about 30 odd years. They moved into this building here, the Clarendonian, which was the Oxford University Press's printing press. I worked for Oxford University Press. That's what brought me to Oxford in the late 70s. And this was the Clarendon Press for years. It's in Walton Street now. But once again, look at the grandeur for that, to house some printing presses. I think these buildings might have been here for something else much earlier.
Well, they're underground.
The top there, that looks loads old.
Well, they've actually got the musical instruments, so I think we're looking at muses there, aren't we?
Need to get Gloria Moss conference in.
Well, when I told her I was doing this, she wanted to get involved, and then I said, well, it's going to be about Mark's books primarily, so she said, well, we should do something.
Let's do a tour there.
Yes, so I think we might be doing that in the future.
But the underground chambers under the library, they actually go underneath here, and they stretch all the way to the building on the far side of Broad Street, which is also part of the library.
Yeah,
and
recently built part of it.
Yeah, and there are, you can see that's a more recent architecture, yeah. There are vaults under there which only certain people can get into, so there's some books that they never take to the reading room, and you're not allowed to sign them out or anything like that. There's some books that are only available to specialised people, so I think that's a bit like the Vatican Library and several other secret libraries around the world. I wouldn't be surprised if when they torched the Library of Alexandria in the 3rd century, yeah, not all the books were. I don't think the books may well not have all been destroyed. Some of them were taken to the Vatican Library in here, or places like this until this place was built. So when who knows what you'll find? I mean, when this nonsense is all over and we're free, we break into these places. God knows what we will learn. I mean, Carl Sagan said the knowledge hidden in there, and if we know from just little snippets that they discovered things like calculus. They found an old book actually, which may have been in the library. It was believed to have been written by Archimedes of Syracuse. And he discovered all inventions in the 2nd century BC that could have built the Industrial Revolution. And it was in this book, yet they didn't have one. They still had like slaves because it was cheaper to have slaves. Plus, they never used the technology. It's a bit crazy, yeah.
Before we leave here, there is that reference to the Dreaming Spires. It came from a Matthew Arnold poem, and I'll quote you the bit that's got the actual Dreaming Spires on there, if you like. It's not here, comes in nice. It's, oh, this must be it, yeah. Yeah, the poem was called Thyrsis, Thyrsis, Thyrsis. And the actual bit there which references Dreaming Spires is this one that goes: humid the air, leafless and yet soft as spring, the tender purple spray on copse and briars, and that sweet city with her dreaming spires. She needs not June for beauty's heightening. And so on. But that
that's why I got the name for the idea for my conference. I called it Dreaming Saucers, because it's in Oxford. I thought.
So that was Matthew Arnold back in the 19th century. Nice one, Matty, as we say in Oxford. And I think it went down quite well. It's caught on a bit, hasn't it? But
before we go, we're going to walk past the old Indian Institute building. Right now, that's now home to the Oxford Martin School. Mark mentioned there are chemtrails above our heads, and believe it or not, this is quite appropriate actually, because if you enrol at the Oxford Martin School, you can do a course in geoengineering, which technically it's not going on.
How poetic that we have that sky above there.
Yes, above the Oxford Martin School, yes. Technically it's not supposed to be happening, but obviously if you learn something in university, it's got to be for a purpose, and who knows what's...
just in case it might be needed.
Yes, who knows. Yeah, I've got a feeling they pull the right people to one side and say, look, between you and me, this is already going on, you know. Do you want to work for us? Yeah. The people who say, there's got to be fewer people in the world, we've got to reduce the population. That sort of thing, yeah. So this
I'm going to bypass the Martyrs Cross and go to this memorial. We'll talk about that story there.
Right, yeah. Are they exactly? I mean, that one of them, this one here, looks like one of the. He looks like one of the porters. That one there looks like a guy called Fernando, who was one of the hospital porters I knew. I used to joke about that. I've got no idea. These cows are everywhere. So it's a charity thing. Sobel House. Yeah. Boswell's is now open. It's now a hotel. Yeah, it's still called Boswell, the store, but unfortunately it's not a store anymore, it's a hotel. But at least it's open. Which way are we going?
The buses are running through here.
All right, so
It's down the pavement, really.
right, okay, so that's when we get to the Randolph. Set me a cryptozoological challenge.
Yeah, I think it's a mythological thing.
Yeah, it's a gargoyle of some kind. Has a dragon like right of the gargoyles on churches.
And stuff like that.
Yeah, right, like Richard Freeman, if you're watching, what's this meant to be? Anyway, so
He may be wrong.
No. Maybe wrong.
but so yeah, so it's what he
And of course you've got a big bulldog.
the bulldog's the guard dog. Yes.
There's a blue plaque to the architect for this. Once again, it was the 1890s.
Yeah, I know. How bizarre.
But it's
I'm sure it
interesting.
wasn't there before until we started looking.
There's a bulldog. Yeah.
I pay a lot of attention to some of these little gargoyles. I see some interesting things. In what used to be a girls' school down the bottom of Wellington School, there's a college there. It's Rowley College, and it was a girls' school built as a girls' school in the 1870s, and there's definitely a depiction of a witch on a broomstick in that kind of detail outside there. I call it the Harry Potter school.
Yeah. That's funny that there was a very daring art feat. I don't know if you over there in the Ashmolean Museum. They've got a really old Cézanne French Impressionist painting it's priceless. It was stolen on Millennium Night when everyone was really drunk between the 31st of December 1999 and the 1st of January 2000. It was a professional job. I mean, these guys used special gas to neutralise the CCTV cameras and things like that, and they broke in, stole the painting, and it's probably now somewhere on the black market, probably in one of the Rockefeller mansions, you know. But a beautiful work of art from one of the greatest artists in history was stolen from that museum.
No, stay there.
Yeah.
Against the backdrop of
Totally. There's loads of very interesting stuff in there. Ancient Egyptian, Sumerian, Babylonian, ancient artifacts, stone monuments, it's all in there. Lots of artwork as well, paintings. I mean, the painting we're talking about here was in a safe, but there's lots of other less valuable paintings that are on display. They're still very beautiful, and they're still hanging there quite happily. There is a huge amount of chemtrail attack at the moment. There's massive trails appearing there. Yeah. Ironically, just after we were talking about the Oxford Martin School, Mark just said, you think it's going to be cooling down tomorrow, Mark? Do you reckon?
I think it probably will, yeah. I just get that feeling.
Oh, you look at that. Well, you see, if something blocks out the sun, it makes it cool. It's just obvious, isn't it? In fact, it feels cool already.
Unless it's carbon dioxide, and then it's blocking everything.
Oh, of course, yeah, carbon dioxide is the big boogeyman, isn't it? It's a chemical.
Greenhouse gas.
So just really quickly then, we'll have one more stop after this, but the Randolph Hotel figures in the first of my books, The Cause and the Cure, very well-known Oxford landmark. A lot of people think it's named after Lord Randolph Churchill, father of Winston Churchill. Turns out to have been named after Dr. Francis Randolph, an 18th century university benefactor. So I've got a scene in here where May Pierce, the policewoman, spots a few dodgy handshakes and a few sort of interesting interactions, some interesting rings on the fingers of certain dignitaries at a ball which has taken place on the eve of May Day. And there's a lot of symbolism attached to the morning of May 1st, mainly centred around Magdalen Bridge, which is sort of around that way somewhere, back down the high street.
Yeah. So the reptilians are.
So this aspect of the story takes place as the 30th of April goes into the morning of May 1st. And we've got an interesting checkerboard floor design on the entrance to the Randolph there. I'm not sure if there's any relevance to that, but essentially is in the story.
Oh yes, the Sonic. Yeah.
And you might have seen the largest cross in Broad Street before we came out of there, and that was to commemorate the burning of these three Protestants tried for heresy, 1555, Latimer, Ridley and Cranmer. So the cross is where they supposedly were burnt at the stake, and the memorial that you see just round the corner there was erected in 1843 to commemorate those events. So one more stop after this, which is the Eagle and Child Tavern.
Interestingly, Randolph Spencer Churchill is said to be the leader of the Jack the Ripper gang. According to Stephen Knight's book. Yeah.
Nice man.
Yes, exactly. Father of Stephen Knight, the guy who wrote stuff about the Masons, Freemasons.
He did the Solomon
Jack the Ripper.
Well, right?
Yeah.
Solomon.
I've read that one. I've not read his other books. The Hiram Kid, that's it.
Very good.
He said that Jack the Ripper was the ritual. They were blackmailing the royal family, and Churchill was like the leader of this gang that killed these women in a ritual manner.
Yeah, well, he's got some good stuff in his books.
Yeah, he's a very interesting guy. Yes, Knight, Stephen Knight. He was the guy who tried to get the Jack the Ripper files declassified after the century date expired, which was 1988. But so it was 100 years were up because they were originally classified for 100 years. But guess what they did? They're going to classify them for another 50 years or something. Yeah, cheering, mate. Yeah, exactly.
I've got a couple of his books, but the Hiram is very good.
Oh, I've not read that one, but it sounds good. This is very neoclassical, this area here. We're going up to the old Burden Baby. Yeah. I looked it up, and apparently the owners have planning permission to refurbish it. Yeah, but they don't know when. They haven't done any work on it yet. But they do have planning permission to refurbish it.
Refurbish? Well, that doesn't sound good, does it?
Well, they better not refurbish it too much, because if they change it in any way, I'll be pissed off.
I started thinking, wait, I
think I'm to the Eagle and Child now. Burden Baby.
It will be reopening soon. The Oxford Times said so.
Well, the owners have planning permission now to refurbish it, but as you can see, they haven't done anything yet. Still looking very sadly shut.
Lots of little alcoves in there.
Yeah,
They keep them.
that's where the Inklings. Well, they must do, because the Inklings used to meet there.
Where was
C.S. Lewis, J.R. Tolkien, they used to meet there.
They used to use that one as well, because Tolkien used to live off the Woodstock Road here. There's a blue plaque outside his house.
Right, yeah.
So it would have been walking distance for Tolkien towards the end of the days. To come down this far. C.S. Lewis was coming from Risinghurst, so he'd coming on the bus, I should imagine.
Well, he lived in St Clements for a while. But
he did?
He lived up just off near off Divinity Road
in
for a
that
while.
case, yeah, but he was probably walking around.
I used to live around the corner from there.
Yeah.
So the Eagle and Child Tavern figures in the first story, The Cause and the Cure. We have the police superintendent, C.C. Nomas. Nomas is an anagram, very unsubtle one. And he pins up an unfortunate traffic warden against a tree who's dared to give him a parking ticket. Probably that tree there. I like to imagine it's that tree. And then he goes into the Snug Bar, which is off to the left here, I believe, to meet with Neil Lowe. Detective Inspector Neil Lowe, get it? He's a subservient man. And this was the place going back to when? What sort of period? With
late
the
50s,
17th century was a pub there,
50s mainly. The Inklings were in the...
so the Inklings were a group
60s,
of writers
60s,
and philosophers, Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, Hugo Dyson and many others who met in this tavern. And this closed down during COVID in 2020, but I hear there are plans for it to reopen.
They've got planned, the owners, it's something laboratory, they have planning permission to, but they haven't done anything yet. But it's a tragedy that's shut, and it's a tragedy of all the pubs that stayed shut, because, as you said, the Inklings met here, Tolkien, Lewis, lots of some of the most famous books in the world were talked about in this writers' club, this writers' group, this writer circle used to meet, and the most famous books in the world were discussed in handwritten notes over the table with a pint and a cigarette. Yeah, so it's very, very sad we can't go in there today. Yeah, it's very sad we can't go in there today.
They're going to build up the Tolkien links and everything, so that will be like a little tourist theme.
This should be a priority then, getting this up and running again, reopened. Yeah.
So will it be a Wetherspoons?
Yeah. Well, if it were, I mean, that'll be at least it'd be safe if it were Wetherspoons, because they value these things. Yeah, they're cheap and they value these sorts of things. Wetherspoons. I mean, if you read their in-house magazine, it's like reading The Light. It's incredible.
Does truth matter?
Yes, it's incredible. Oh, brilliant.
Well, this is the last stop on the tour, so unless anyone wants to head over to the pub.
I'm going to do that. But does anybody want to just hear my last word on the Marx thing?
Yeah.
Okay, that was his college bailey, who come around the corner there. I did point out the window, which they had removable bars on. Through people used to go through there, outside in the street. All sorts of people will be in there. Lots of dope smoked and everything. Obviously known about by the dean and such like, but he got on well with the dean. So the fact that he was distributing drugs to the undergraduate or around the college scene at the time seemed to be okay with them. This was admitted in the book later on in 1968 during his postgrad year. The dean was worried about the political involvement of some of the people attached to the college, particularly the Vietnam War protests, and 1968 was the year of the barricades, student protests all over Europe. Paris particularly had some major uprising. The dean wanted the graduates to be more interested in, chilling out, having a smoke and not getting involved, sort of thing. So that part of it doesn't seem to be hidden. So I'll look for the Small Faces link. In 1966, or for the Midsummer Ball 1966, in 1965, Marx knew the music scene, and he was given £1,000 to organise the entertainment. He booked the Small Faces and Spencer Davis group. He was looking to get groups who were likely to be big soon. And sure enough, they both, the intervening period from him booking them and the Summer Ball in '66, they had #1 hits. So they wanted to get out of the contract so they could tour. And so in order to get out of the contract, which they were being held to, Marx could have sued them if they broke the contract without making something else. He made them an offer: if you can get me top name bands but within my £1,000 budget, then you can keep, let your stars go and tour. So we got 4 bands. He got the Fortunes, the Kinks, Them, fronted by Van Morrison, the Belfast band, and Alan Price set. Alan Price had just left the Animals. So he got them, an Irish show band, and a circus troupe, all within his £1,000. So he smoked. He later said drank whiskey with Ray Davies from the Kinks and smoked dope with them. Now, I was on very good authority of a friend of a friend. Van Morrison does remember playing the gig, but he can't remember any detail of it. He said it's all a bit hazy, as you would expect.
I bet, yeah.
Like the skies.
So I checked the Small Faces touring list. It's on their website, and leading up to the 21st of that year, because they've been bought out, the contract had been bought out now, they appeared on BBC television. Then they played 2 gigs on the same day. The 21st, they've got nothing at all planned. Then after that, they went to Sweden prior to a German tour. But for the 21st itself, there was nothing. The 21st is one of those days, isn't it, when things might be going on? It's Midsummer's Day. That date, they could have played that according to their schedule, but they didn't. Yeah. So
No, look.
Oh!
2106. So you just said 21st of June.
Yeah.
2106.
Oh my God!
How about that, eh?
So it begs the question: if all this was known, that there was a link between the Small Faces coming in here, smoking dirt with Howard Marks, then why didn't it appear in this book? Why didn't it come out in anecdotes later? Why is there a total veil of secrecy? Both Lane and Marriott are dead, long dead, and Howard Marks is dead. So why the secrecy? Well, can you think of any organisation that might demand secrecy on pain of death or some particular?
Quite a few.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's a link there, which obviously the book's entertaining, but it's more interesting for what's left out of it than what's in it. I think the bigger picture of Marx pushing the drugs. He said he was doing it to stop them going into getting involved with political stuff now. We know that might be part of social engineering, but the social engineering program that was happening in the States around the Laurel Canyon scene, mentioned in another book, might have been going on here in a similar way. But who were the people who were pulling the strings? People who could demand total silence and never ever mention it would be prime candidates to me.
There's a lot of them around.
There's a lot of them around.
It turns out.
So I think we can leave it on that.
Thanks,
but
mate.
there's so much more that I could have said, but we shan't. We've had a little bit of simplicity.
Really, Tony? Surely not.
Yeah.
Right, round of applause for Mark.
Yeah.
Yay, thank you.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. And for Tony. Thank you, Tony.
And thanks to Tony and Ben, my
Thank you.
co-hosts,
Thank
for
you.
their amazing knowledge as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Glad you enjoyed it. Cheers.
Brilliant.
Thanks for coming. So,
And thank you guys for watching.
we'll...
Elvish is Tolkienian language, doesn't it? It's been made up for the story. Yeah. Amazing, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know what it means. Well, guys, I'm heading home. It's been a wonderful evening. It's about 11 o'clock. It stayed longer than I expected, but I had a lock-in at the Lamb and Flag. Well, it's actually not quite a lock-in, but that's a really nice pub, actually. It's one of the cheapest pubs I've been in. I had a lovely conversation with everyone, and now I'm heading home. I'd like to thank Mark Devlin for another brilliant tour of Oxford. Thanks to Tony Chin for his own little input, his own fascinating story. And of course, thanks to everyone who turned up at this really, really cool event. And please do buy the books, The Gift and the Curse and The Cause and the Cure. Mark Devlin's own little, well, it's going to be a trilogy. It's now, it's 2 books so far. I know he's writing a 3rd book. And so check those out. If you like Hapanmo TV, I think you'll like those books. You really, really will. And thank you, all of you Hapanmo TV viewers, for watching. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order.